Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. East China Sea, Cocoa West Village, on the golden beach by the sea, a little girl with short orange hair was struggling to drag a black-haired boy of about her age. They moved towards a tall coconut tree with lush branches and leaves on the beach with difficulty. The two walked for a long time before finally stopping in the shade under the coconut tree. I'm so tired, why should I save him? But if I don't save him, he will be dried up by the scorching sun at noon. If that happens, I will definitely be scolded by Nokiko and Belmere, Nami muttered softly while wiping the sweat from her forehead with her hand. Nokiko? Belmere? What a familiar name, aren't these Nami's family members in the pirate comics? In a trance, Ningchuan slowly opened his eyes and looked at everything in front of him. The moment he opened his eyes, but he saw a familiar face that he didn't expect. Isn't this my favorite Nami in One Piece when she was a child? Am I dazzled? How did little Nami suddenly appear in front of me? Could it be that damned dump truck that just now hurt my head? The moment he saw little Nami, Ningchuan was very surprised. Nami, who was sitting next to Ningchuan, blushed immediately after hearing his somewhat unreasonable words. You, who are you? I don't even know you, but why do you know my name? And, you said you like me? Little Nami had never experienced such embarrassing scenes. She was a little stunned and stood there, and she became incoherent in panic. This illusion is quite real, and she is shy. It would be even better if I could touch Nami's cute little head. Looking at Nami with a blushing face, Ning Chuan smiled and stretched out his hand, rubbing Nami's head for a while. Something is wrong. It's obviously an illusion, how can it feel so real? Is my head really damaged by good luck? Just when Ning Chuan was wondering why an illusion could feel so real. Little Nami, whose face had already blushed, she opened her mouth angrily and bit Ning Chuan's hand. Hiss. It hurts. Ning Chuan, who was bitten hard by Nami, quickly retracted his bitten hand. He looked down at the neat row of teeth marks on his hand. He was suddenly confused. This doesn't seem to be an illusion. Also, why did my hand become so small? Just when Ning Chuan was confused and didn't know what happened, suddenly, a neutral mechanical sound came from his mind. Congratulations to the host for successfully traveling through the pirate world. Get the gift of the world, a 10,000 times practice return system. Everything the host practices every day will be returned 10,000 times. The host accidentally traveled through time, so he got an extra reward, and the host's body is 10 years younger. After hearing the voice of the system, Ning Chuan, who was in a confused state, became even more confused at this time. What's the situation? I traveled through time and came to my favorite pirate world. Could it be that everything just now was not an illusion, but real? Thinking of this, Ning Chuan immediately looked up. He looked at the little Nami, whose face was blushing but could not hide the anger between her eyebrows. Humph, what are you looking at? Don't think that I won't be angry with you just because you are handsome. If you say such strange words casually again and are rude to your savior, I will bite you. Nami pretended to be very angry, raised her little fist and said viciously, looking at Nami's cute appearance at this time, that it doesn't look like an illusion at all. Only then did Ningchuan finally believe that he had really traveled to the world of One Piece. However, Ningchuan was not dissatisfied with the fact that he was sent to travel by a dump truck. He was even very happy. Not only did he escape from the daily life of cattle and horses on Blue Star, he also got the system in the world of One Piece. The days ahead will be so exciting. When he thought about the wonderful life that he would have in the future, Ningchuan couldn't stop smiling. Why did he suddenly become so happy? Little Nami on the side secretly looked at the extremely happy Ningchuan, and a big question mark appeared in her head. But soon, she seemed to want to. Suddenly she spoke up. Oh, by the way. I don't know your name yet. Hearing Nami's words, Ningchuan stood up very happily, stretched out his hand to Nami, and said with a smile. My name is Ningchuan, please give me more advice in the future. In the orange orchard of Cocoa West Village, little Nami took Ningchuan and gently knocked on the door of a house located in the middle of the orange orchard. Belmere is a very nice person. You must talk to her well, she will give you a job to help pick oranges. Although the salary is not much, it is enough to fill your stomach. Little Nami had just finished explaining to Ningchuan. With a creak, the door of the house was opened from the inside. Ningchuan looked up. I saw a young woman with wine-red hair, a slim figure, and a cigarette in her mouth walked out. The first time Belmer opened the door, he noticed Ningchuan standing next to Nami. She recalled carefully and found that she had never seen this handsome little boy in the village before. Is there a new resident in the village? With his appearance and dress, he should come from a wealthy family. Belmer blew a smoke ring towards the sky and thought so in her mind. Belmer, his name is Ningchuan, I just picked him up on the beach. He and his family encountered pirates at sea, and the whole ship was sunk by the hateful pirates. Only he floated to the beach alive. I want him to come to our orange orchard to find a job to fill his stomach first. For some reason, Nami, who had already agreed to let Ningchuan say these words himself, but at this moment, she directly asked Belmer for Ningchuan. It turns out that he is also an orphan, a poor child, a pirate who deserves to be killed. After knowing Ningchuan's origin, Belmer sighed helplessly. Since Nami likes you very much, then you should stay. Ningchuan, right? You are not allowed to be lazy here. You must come to the orange orchard to help every day. Belmer stretched out his hand and rubbed Ningchuan's head, smiling and speaking. Hearing Belmer agree to let Ningchuan stay, Nami finally smiled, but soon, a blush appeared on her face again. She waved her fist and complained to Belmer with a little dissatisfaction. Who said I like him? Hateful Belmer, I'm going to pick oranges first. After that, Shy Nami picked up the orange frame and ran into the orange orchard. Looking at Shy Nami, Ningchuan couldn't help but smile. Such a plain and peaceful life seems to be pretty good. Laughing, Ningchuan suddenly thought of a very serious problem. He put away the smile on his face, looked at Belmer seriously, and asked. Aunt Belmer, what year is it in the Haiyuan calendar now? After hearing Ningchuan's words, Belmer didn't think much and spoke directly. This year is the 1512th year of the Haiyuan calendar. What's wrong? Is there anything? But when he heard that it was the 1512th year of the Haiyuan calendar, Ningchuan's brows immediately frowned. It's the 1512th year of the Haiyuan calendar. Along and his group should be coming to this island soon. But this time I'm here, the tragedy won't happen again. Along, Cocoa West Village, if you dare to come, I'll dry the sharks. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at Ningchuan's slightly frowned brows, Belmer realized that this little guy seemed to be very sensitive to the year. What's wrong? Is the year 1512 of the Haiyuan calendar very important to you, a little guy? Belmer smiled and touched Ningchuan's head, then he picked up an orange basket from the ground and handed it to Ningchuan. Little Ningchuan, don't be dazed. Hurry up and pick oranges. Fill this basket before noon. Otherwise, you won't have chicken legs for lunch. After the instructions, Belmer waved to Ningchuan, urging him to follow Nami to pick oranges. Ningchuan didn't mean to explain to Belmer what was going to happen next, so he took the orange basket and chased in the direction Nami left. Soon, he saw little Nami lying on an orange tree in the distance picking oranges, and under this tree, a blue-haired beauty who was 1 or 2 years older than Nami was holding her waist and directing from below. Nami, you just sneaked out to play. Today, you have to pick one more basket to eat chicken legs. After hearing what Nokigo said, Nami, who was lying on the orange tree, complained very dissatisfiedly. I didn't sneak out to play. I went to save someone. If you don't believe me, look, the guy I just saved is right there. While picking oranges, Nami pointed to the direction of Ningchuan. Nokigo looked in the direction of Nami's finger. I saw a very handsome boy who was about the same age as Nami. He walked towards the direction of the two of them with an orange basket in his hand. Are you Nami's sister Nokigo? My name is Ningchuan. It's our first meeting. Please give me your guidance. Ningchuan stretched out her hand to Nokigo with a little smile. Huh, so polite. From now on, you should call me sister like Nami. Nokigo's face was full of smiles, and her beautiful big eyes curved into crescents. She held Ningchuan's hand tightly in her hand happily. Hey! Ningchuan, why are you still standing there? Come up and help me pick oranges, otherwise there will be no chicken legs for lunch today. Looking at Ningchuan and Nokigo chatting below, Nami, who climbed up the tree alone to pick oranges, was a little dissatisfied and complained to the two. Looking at Nami, who was a little dissatisfied climbing on the tree, Ningchuan smiled and put down the orange frame in his hand. Then he pulled the basket of oranges that Nami had picked with great effort to his side, then he shouted to Nami on the tree. With a smirk on his face. Nami, this basket of oranges belongs to me. Please pick one more basket. I'm going to start practicing. Hearing Ningchuan's words, Nami, who wanted to pick oranges from the tree with Ningchuan, was stunned for a moment, and then spoke angrily. Okay, you're lazy on the first day in the orange orchard. You're too much. Be lazy if you want to, and make up an excuse to practice. How old are you? How can you possibly know how to practice? Even Belmir, who was a navy, doesn't know how to practice. Nami stood on the tree angrily, one hand on her waist, and the other pointing at Ningchuan and yelling angrily. Looking at Nami's frustrated look, Nokiko looked at Ningchuan with a smile on his face, and laughed in his heart. This little brat named Ningchuan is quite capable. He can make Nami, the naughty ghost from Kokoa village, so angry. Life in the future seems to be very interesting. After laughing in her heart, Nokiko was somewhat interested in the practice that Ningchuan just mentioned. She walked to Ningchuan and asked curiously. Ningchuan, is your dream to become a pirate like Roger, or a navy like the hero Garp? Otherwise, why do you want to start practicing now? After listening to Nokiko, Ningchuan smiled and shook his head. None of these. The purpose of my practice is very simple, I just want to protect those I want to protect. As for the pirate or the navy hero, I think, as long as my strength is unmatched, I can get any identity, even the noble celestial dragon. After Ningchuan finished speaking, he looked at Nami and Nokiko with a smile on his face. The two young girls, who were not very experienced in the world, were frightened by Ningchuan's shocking words. Especially when he mentioned the celestial dragons. The moment Ningchuan finished speaking, Nokiko rushed. She came to Ningchuan and covered his mouth with her hand. Shoo! You can say bad things about anyone in this sea, but you must not say bad things about the celestial dragons. If someone hears it, the consequences will be very serious. Looking at the frightened look on Nokiko's face, Ningchuan smiled and shook his head. After all, for anthropomorphic creatures like the celestial dragons, some things can't be avoided just because you want to. I have already told you my purpose. Next, I will start practicing. Hearing Ningchuan say that he was going to start practicing, Nami and Nokiko immediately moved their curious eyes to Ningchuan. At this time, the two of them were very curious about what the practice that Ningchuan mentioned was like. Under the curious eyes of this pair of sisters, Ningchuan came to a boulder that was more than 2 meters high. He looked at the boulder in front of him and patted it with his hand. Heavy and solid, it is a very good object for cultivation. Ningchuan lowered his body, learned to practice kung fu in TV dramas, and took a horse stance. He stretched out his right fist and gently touched the stone, then he put it back to his waist, posing as if ready to punch at any time. Nami and Nokiko watched Ningchuan's movements. The two looked at each other at the same time, and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Is his so-called practice to hit this stubborn stone with his fist? This is too scary. How can a human fist shake a boulder? What's more, Ningchuan is so young. If he punches rashly, his hand will definitely be injured. The sisters were worried about Ningchuan at this moment. At the same time, they also had a trace of expectation in their hearts. What if Ningchuan can really shake this boulder? Just when the two were extremely anxious, Ningchuan shouted loudly, interrupting their thoughts. Then, under the gaze of the two, Ningchuan's fist landed heavily on this boulder. Ugh! It hurts. Ningchuan punched the boulder. Not only did the boulder not move, but his fist almost broke. The hard stone hurt Ningchuan's fist. No wonder everyone in the pirate world is a monster. As an ordinary person, hitting a stone almost crippled my hand. With such strength, when facing a powerful pirate, I'm afraid I can only serve food to the other side. Looking at his already red and swollen fist, Ning Chuan shook his head helplessly. But luckily, I'm a cheater. System, I've just practiced one punch, start to settle the score for me. Congratulations to the host for successfully practicing one punch, activating the 10,000 times return system. Start practicing and settling the score now. Settlement successful, congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the return of 10,000 punches. The host's physical qualities have been improved without side effects. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as the system finished speaking, Ning Chuan felt that his body was rapidly getting stronger. However, it was mainly his right fist that was getting stronger at this time. The all-round improvement brought by punching the boulder 10,000 times, Ning Chuan's right fist was filled with power in an instant. When he threw the first punch before, the injuries on his fist were also fully recovered at this moment, no hidden injuries were left. One punch is equivalent to throwing 10,000 punches. This 10,000 times return system seems to be quite amazing. Feeling the strong power coming from his fist, Ning Chuan looked at the boulder in front of him, ready to throw the second punch at any time. At this time, the two sisters Nami and Nokigo, who were watching the whole process on the side, were puzzled by Ning Chuan's behavior of continuing to punch the boulder. The first punch clearly swollen his fist, and he couldn't help but scream in pain. Why is he going to throw a second punch so soon? Is this guy a lunatic? No, we must stop him. Practicing is not just about punching like him. If you do that, you will cause irreversible damage to yourself. Nami and Nokigo looked at Ningchuan, who was standing there ready to throw a second punch. After looking at each other, they prepared to come to Ningchuan's side to stop him. If he continued to practice blindly like this, not only would he not become stronger, but he would also most likely cripple his fist. This was the scene they least wanted to see. However, their actions were still too late. At the moment when the two of them were about to rush to Ningchuan's side, Ningchuan's fist had already hit the boulder in front of him. Bang! Only a dull sound was heard. On the huge stone, Ningchuan's fist punched out a deep fist mark. This was a punch that Ning Chuan threw with all his strength after he had practiced and gained the cultivation of 10,000 punches. After this punch, his fist was still swollen and the pain was still obvious, but the power of this punch made Ning Chuan very satisfied. After one settlement, a fist mark can be left on this huge stone. Then after this full strength attack, if he settles again, then how powerful will his next punch be? Thinking of this, the excitement brought to Ning Chuan by the improvement of strength has made him ignore the pain on his fist. At this time, Nami and Nokigo, who were standing next to Ning Chuan, just wanted to persuade Ning Chuan to give up this blind practice. However, before they could speak, they suddenly saw a deep fist mark on the huge stone in front of them. Seeing this scene, the two sisters were a little stunned. The two of them reached out and touched the huge stone in front of them incredulously. She also stretched out her little fist and punched it lightly a few times. Suddenly, the real pain on their fists made them rub their fists. It hurts. This stone is too hard. Nokigo looked at her slightly swollen fist. She looked at Ningchuan beside her with an incredible look. She couldn't imagine how Ningchuan, who was so young, could leave a fist mark on this boulder. Woo, Ningchuan, my fist is swollen, but this boulder is still intact. How much force did you use to leave a fist mark on it? Nami looked at Ningchuan with tears in her eyes full of confusion. Ningchuan was not prepared to explain their doubts to them. Ningchuan smiled and stretched out his hand to rub Nami and Nokigo's heads, and said gently, "You come and stand behind me, my next punch will be very powerful." Looking at the confident smile on Ningchuan's face, somehow, Nami and Nokigo were infected by his confidence. They even had an illusion in their hearts. It seemed that Ningchuan's next punch would smash the entire boulder to pieces. System, start calculating the punch you just practiced. Congratulations to the host for practicing a full-strength punch and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start the cultivation settlement now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for receiving the full-strength 10,000 punches return. The host's physical fitness has been improved without side effects. When the system voice fell, Ningchuan only felt that his fist was full of power again at this moment. The cultivation return this time was equivalent to the cultivation return from his full-strength 10,000 punches just now. It was many times stronger than the ordinary punch he made when he first settled it. Feeling his fist uploaded the terrifying power coming, Ning Chuan discovered something very amazing. That is his cultivation return system, which actually multiplies the improvement of strength, instead of adding little by little. To give a simple example, assume that the return of cultivation after each punch is 10 times, then his first punch is an ordinary punch, and after receiving 10,000 times of cultivation return, his fist has gained 10 times the strength. Then the second time he punched with 10 times the power of the fist, after receiving 10,000 times of cultivation return, his fist will be 100 times stronger than the first punch. Strengthen according to the multiplication, and strengthen the punch with full force every time. I'm afraid it won't take long, and it will be multiplied again and again. In the entire pirate world, I'm afraid no one can withstand his punch. For such a multiple increase in strength, Ning Chuan is naturally very satisfied. Let's try it now, the power of my fist after the second settlement. Thinking of this, Ning Chuan no longer hesitated, raising his fist, he once again used all his strength to hit the boulder in front of him. Ning Chuan's punch this time, he could clearly feel the speed, strength, and the terrifying fist momentum on the front of his fist. They were all many times more terrifying than his last punch. Ning Chuan's punch once again hit the same position as the last punch. However, the difference from the last punch was that his last punch could only leave a fist mark on the boulder, and when his punch hit the boulder, there was a loud bang. The boulder in front of him, which was more than 2 meters high, was actually smashed into pieces by Ning Chuan's punch. Countless pieces of rubble shot into the depths of the jungle at a very fast speed like bullets. Fortunately, Ning Chuan brought the 2 Nami sisters behind him in advance, otherwise, the terrifying impact of the huge rock exploding instantly would be enough to injure the 2 little girls. Add to that the flying rocks of all sizes. If they were hit by these things, even if they survived, they would at least be seriously injured. Ning Chuan was very satisfied with his punch. However, Nami and Nokigo, who were standing behind him, were stunned with incredible looks on their faces. Did Ning Chuan really smash this huge rock with one punch? Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the 2 sisters Nami who were stunned by the shock, Ning Chuan smiled slightly and said silently in his heart. System, start settlement, settlement successful, the host successfully obtained a 10,000 times return of cultivation. The moment the system's voice fell, Ning Chuan immediately felt that his fist was many times stronger. If there was another boulder as big as the previous one, Ning Chuan was confident that he could smash it to pieces with just a light blow. When Ning Chuan looked back, he looked at the 2 sisters who were still stunned and motionless, he smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to rub their heads. Sorry, I scared you. Hearing Ning Chuan's voice, Nami and Nokiko finally came back to their senses from the shock. Nami came to Ning Chuan as soon as possible, she stretched out her hand, pulled up Ning Chuan's fist and looked at it carefully. Finally, she asked with an incredible look on her face. Ning Chuan, how did you break such a huge boulder? After hearing her sister's question, Nokigo couldn't help but become curious. Ning Chuan is obviously about the same age as the 2 of them, but why does he have such terrifying power and can easily break the boulder? This is the result of hard practice. In places you can't see, I have put in thousands of times more effort. Ning Chuan pretended to be deep and answered seriously. As soon as he finished speaking, he was met with a round of eye rolls from Nami and Nokigo. Bad Ning Chuan. You don't want to say it, and you dare to make up a reason to lie to me. Humph, I won't pay attention to you. Nami pretended to be angry and turned her head away, but her little eyes glanced at Ning Chuan's fist from time to time. It seems that she is still curious about Ning Chuan's ability to make such terrifying progress in such a short time, but Ning Chuan has no intention of explaining to her. At this moment, suddenly, a roar of a wild beast came from the distant jungle. Nami and Nokigo, who heard the sound, changed their faces instantly. Oh no, it's the forest bear king. It must have been disturbed by the noise just now. Let's climb up the tree quickly. The forest bear king is very dangerous. Last time it sneaked into the orange orchard, if Bellmeyer hadn't shot it back in time, we would have become its food. Looking at the two sisters Nami and Nokigo, whose faces changed drastically, Ningchuan not only did not show any nervousness, but a hint of excitement appeared on his face. He had calculated his cultivation so many times, it would be too boring if he just hit the stone. This forest bear king came out at the right time, it just happened to be the target for his boxing practice. Ningchuan, don't stay here, go. You won't be its opponent. Nami looked at Ningchuan, who was still standing there, and a hint of anxiety appeared on her little face. At this time, Nokigo on the side wanted to reach out to pull Nami and Ningchuan, but Ningchuan leaned over and avoided Nokigo's hand. Don't worry, I'm here. Let's not eat chicken legs for lunch today, let's eat bear paws instead. Hearing Ningchuan's confident voice, Nami and Nokigo seemed to be infected by Ningchuan's confidence and froze in place again. I don't know why, Ningchuan's voice seemed to have a kind of magic. The two people who were originally extremely anxious suddenly calmed down at this moment. Roar! With the roar of the Bear King getting closer and closer to the three people, they also gradually saw the Forest Bear King in the distance, which was more than 8 meters tall and ran towards the three people like a hill. It's worthy of being the pirate world. It's just a bear, but it can grow so big. No wonder Belmere can only repel it with a gun. If such a big thing is placed on Blue Star, it might be able to fight against armored vehicles. For the Bear King running towards the three people, Ning Chuan couldn't help but let out a series of sighs. However, after sighing, he whispered in his mind. System, start practicing settlement. Settlement successful, host successfully obtained a 10,000 times return of punching cultivation. With the 10,000 times return of Ning Chuan's punch that just smashed the boulder, he felt that his right fist was now like the legendary Chilan arm, so powerful that he was a little surprised. If I keep practicing like this, I'm afraid I will become the one-punch man of this pirate world. But only practicing this right fist seems a little uncoordinated. If possible, I still need to learn some mature training systems. Just when Ning Chuan's thoughts were flying in his mind, the Forest Bear King had already rushed to less than 5 meters in front of the three people. Looking at the giant bear that had rushed to the front of the three people, Nami and Nokigo were already scared and stayed in place, closing their eyes, didn't dare to continue watching, and Ning Chuan, who was standing there, stared at the bear claws that were slapping him, and without hesitation, he punched out. Boom! There was a loud noise. Nami and Nokigo, the two sisters, immediately smelled a strong smell of blood. When they smelled this smell, they didn't dare to open their eyes, because they were afraid that when they opened their eyes, they would see Ning Chuan being eaten by the Bear King. Nami, Nokigo, let's get ready to go back. For lunch today, we're going to eat bear paws. Until the two heard Ning Chuan's voice, they forced themselves to suppress the discomfort in their hearts and slowly opened their eyes. The moment they opened their eyes, they saw the Bear King, who was just so majestic and arrogant. Now he was like a mountain of meat, lying limply on the ground. There was a transparent hole as big as a human head on the chest of the Bear King. Seeing this scene, Nami and Nokigo were stunned again. Is this still the arrogant Forest Bear King? How could Ning Chuan be so strong? When Ning Chuan lifted the huge Bear King with one hand and returned to the village with the two sisters Nami, as soon as they arrived at the village, they found that something seemed wrong with the village today. The village today was too quiet, in stark contrast to the lively appearance of the past. In addition, there was a large ship parked on the sea in the distance. On the mast of this large ship, there was a pirate flag with a blood-red shark pattern. Seeing this scene, Ning Chuan's brows were tightly knitted together, but soon, he relaxed again. It seems that I came in time. Along pirates, I didn't expect you to really come to die. Just when Ning Chuan and the other two were about to turn around and go home, suddenly, an extremely excited voice came from a distance. Captain Bizarro, there are 3 children here. Another 150,000 Baileys. But I hope they can't take it out, so we can have dinner. Human children have delicate skin and tender flesh, but they are very delicious. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bizarro, the musician and team leader of the Arlong Pirates, was a fishman. After hearing what his subordinate said, he immediately looked in the direction his subordinate pointed. It didn't matter that he looked at it, but it scared him. Not far in front of their team, there were 3 young children, 1 boy and 2 girls. if they were ordinary human children, Bizarro would definitely not be scared, but it was obvious that these three children were not ordinary at all. Especially the little boy standing in the front, carrying a giant bear like a mountain of meat in his hand. Bizarro could never have imagined it, such a big bear. Just imagining its ferocity, I'm afraid it would be difficult for ordinary fishmen to deal with it. Not to mention a child. And now he was even more shocked. How could a human cub have such great strength? Can he carry a giant bear that is dozens of times bigger than him so easily? This is probably a bit unreasonable. Unlike the brainless fishmen under his command, Bizarro immediately discovered that something was wrong with Ningchuan. He pulled up a carp fishman beside him and ordered him anxiously. You, go and inform Captain Xiaoba. There may be a guy who is difficult to deal with here. The cadres must come to deal with him. That the carp fishman pulled up by Bizarro looked at Ningchuan and the other two in the distance. He looked at his Captain Bizarro again. He asked with some difficulty. Captain Bizarro, they are just 3 children. They shouldn't alarm the cadres, right? However, before he finished speaking, Bizarro's drumstick hit his head. Have you ever seen a child who can carry such a big bear? This is absolutely abnormal. Go quickly, call the cadres over, I'll hold on here first. After saying that, Bizarro kicked the carp fishman on the buttocks and kicked him far away. While Bizarro was distracted, his other 2 men had already come to Ningchuan and the other 2 at this time. Looking down at them, a trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes. Little devil, do you want to live? Adults 100,000 times, children 50,000 belly. For the 3 of you, I'll give you a cheaper price, and I'll charge you 200,000 belly. If you can't even take out 200,000 belly, then come into our stomachs and rest. Children of your age are at their best. As the 2 fishmen spoke, they licked their sharp teeth with their tongues. There was also a trace of greed in their eyes when they looked at Ningchuan and the other 2, looking at the 2 vicious fishmen in front of them. Nami and Nokigo instinctively stepped back several steps, although they had never seen the appearance of fishmen before, but just look at the saliva flowing from their mouths at this time. Plus the words they just said, these guys who look half human and half fish are definitely not good things. Nami, Nokigo, do you like shark fins? If you don't like it, then let's eat bear paws for lunch today. Looking at the Nami sisters who were frightened and speechless, Ningchuan's calm voice reached their ears at this moment. Let them slowly come back to their senses from the shock. With Ningchuan, their nervous hearts also relaxed a lot at this moment. Don't you like shark fins? Then let's eat bear paws today. Ningchuan turned his head and smiled at Nami and Nokigo, then he gently threw the giant bear in his hand, which was like a meat mountain, and a puff of dust was stirred up. Asshole, what do you mean? Since you are looking for death, I will not be polite. Boss Along said that if you encounter resistance, just kill it. After that, the 2 fishmen stared at Ningchuan with ferocious eyes. It seemed that Ningchuan had become a food that they could easily get at this moment. The next moment, the 2 fishmen attacked instantly. The fists as big as sandbags and claws as sharp as blades went straight to Ningchuan's heart. However, Ningchuan spoke calmly in his mind at this time. System, start the settlement. Settlement successful. The host successfully obtained a 10,000 times return of the punching power. Almost in an instant, the return of the power of Ningchuan's full-strength punch that killed the giant bear has been received. Looking at the 2 attacks coming towards him, Ningchuan sneered, such a powerful attack is not even as strong as the giant bear came fiercely before. Ningchuan raised his hand calmly. In the shocked eyes of the 2 fishmen, he threw 2 consecutive punches. The next moment, something that made everyone feel extremely horrified happened. The 2 fishmen who just shouted that they wanted to eat Ningchuan, they were actually blown up by Ningchuan's punches. In a flash, 2 balls of bright red blood mist appeared in front of everyone. Captain Bizarro looked at the horrible scene in front of him with an incredible look on his face. Those were 2 living fishmen. Although they were just soldiers, not cadres, but the fishmen, whose average physical strength is 10 times that of humans, were blown up by a child with 1 punch. How is this possible? What kind of monster is this child? At this moment, Bizarro felt his body was cold and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He wanted to turn around and jump into the sea immediately. It seemed that only by returning to the embrace of the sea could he calm his terrified heart. Facing Ning Chuan at this moment, Bisharo felt the same horror as when he faced his boss Eren. No, this feeling was even stronger than when he faced Eren. I am not his opponent, I can't fight him head-on. I have sent people to call the cadres, Brother Xiaoba should be able to get rid of him, right? Bisharo was so scared that he was stunned in place, he didn't dare to attack Ning Chuan, nor did he dare to move a step, he was afraid that the fist of the young man in front of him would hit him directly at the moment he moved. He knew very well that he couldn't take that punch. Just when Bisharo was covered in cold sweat and didn't know what to do, suddenly, a familiar voice rang in his ears. Bisharo, they are just 3 kids. What can't be solved? Why do you call us over? Brother Along is a little angry with you. That when Xiaoba's voice sounded in Bisaro's ears, Bisaro felt a sense of relief that he had never felt before. Captain Xiaoba, you finally come. Captain, be careful. However, Bisaro's words were not finished yet. I saw a familiar octopus head flying directly in front of him. Then, Ningchuan's voice, which was like the whisper of the god of death, echoed in his ears. I think takoyaki is better than shark fin. But I don't know if takoyaki made by fishmen is edible. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Almost in an instant, Xiao Ba, who had just arrived, had not figured out what had happened. Its head had already been completely separated from its body. A large amount of blood gushed out like a fountain at this moment. It soaked Bisaro beside him. Along's cadre Xiao Ba. Seems a little weak. Looking at Xiao Ba, who was separated from his head without even reacting to his punch, Ning Chuan smiled and shook his head disdainfully. At this moment, Ning Chuan's voice was not much better than the whisper of the god of death in Bisaro's ears. After witnessing the death of Xiao Ba, a cadre of the same pirate group, Bisaro had completely given up the idea of confronting Ning Chuan in his heart. He knew that even if there were 10 of himself now, they would not be Ning Chuan's opponent. Even Xiao Ba could be killed with one punch. This child's strength, even in the entire East China Sea, it is enough to rank first. Where are the other officers of the Arlong pirates? Why is there only this one? You, go and call your boss Arlong and all the remaining fishmen over. I'll be waiting at your pirate ship. Today I want to have a full fish feast. Ningchuan reached out and pulled the clothes that Bisaro was wearing over his body, and wiped the blood off his fist. Then he threw it back again. Captain Bisaro was frightened by Ningchuan's action and dared not move. His body kept shaking, and a faint yellow liquid flowed out between his thighs. He was afraid that the kid in front of him would be in a bad mood. The next punch would hit him. Get lost. After hearing these 2 words, Bisaro took a step towards the center of the village as if he had been pardoned. The pressure Ningchuan brought to him was really too great. Just like facing the invincible Vice Admiral Kizaru back then, he felt powerless. I hope that Boss Along can deal with this brat. After all, Boss Along is a pirate with a bounty of 20 million berries. However, if even Boss Along is not his opponent, and he gives. Bisaro muttered in his heart, and at the same time began to plan a way out for himself in his heart. However, what he didn't know was, no matter what, Ningchuan would not let go of any fishman who dared to set foot on the island of Cocoa West Village today. Even if the other party surrendered, it would not work. After Bisaro left, Ningchuan muttered in his heart. System, start the cultivation settlement. The moment Ningchuan's voice fell, the voice of the system rang in his ears. The host has made 3 full-strength punches and sprinted 10 steps with full strength in this practice, and successfully activated the cultivation 10,000 times return system. Now start to settle the results of this practice. Successful settlement, obtained the cultivation return of 30,000 full-strength punches and 100,000 full-strength sprints. The host's physical fitness has been improved without side effects. Almost in an instant, Ning Chuan has received the return cultivation. This time, he clearly felt that his legs became stronger. If he sprints again, his speed will be several times faster than before. But this time the improvement in the strength of the punches is not as obvious as the previous times. It seems that his cultivation in punching has reached a bottleneck. However, Ning Chuan, who has a 10,000 times return of cultivation, is not worried about this bottleneck period. He firmly believes that as long as he is diligent enough and punches enough times, then this bottleneck period will soon pass. Ning Chuan, I'm a little worried about Belmere. Yes, or should we go home first? That just as Ning Chuan felt that he was getting stronger, Nami's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Ning Chuan looked back and saw that Nami's face had obviously become much paler than before. It seemed that the fight just now had frightened little Nami. But what made Ning Chuan feel relieved was that, although Nami was frightened by the scene in front of her, but she did not collapse on the ground with her legs weak. Instead, she asked to go back to see Belmere when she was extremely scared. Nokiko's situation was not much worse than Nami's at the moment. Just now, when facing the two fishmen who wanted to eat people, she was already frightened. Later, Ning Chuan killed two fishmen and easily took down the fishman cadres of the pirate group. Once again, it hit her young heart hard. However, as children raised by retired Navy, the two of them were able to adjust from such an abnormal state quickly. After all, in her during their growth, Belmere also told them more than once about the terrible scenes of encountering pirates when he served in the Navy. Nami is right, we should go home first. I hope Belmere can protect herself and hold on until Ningchuan returns. Looking at the very sensible Nokiko and Nami, Ningchuan reached out and rubbed their heads, comforting them softly. Don't worry, Belmere was a Navy before, she has the means to deal with pirates. Just as Ningchuan's voice fell, behind them, a very familiar voice suddenly came. Ningchuan, Nami, Nokiko, run. I'll stop these pirates. When this familiar voice sounded, Ningchuan turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. Belmere took out the gun she brought back when she retired from the Navy, aim at the Arlong pirates who are walking towards the location of Ningchuan and the other two. Although Belmere didn't understand why the fishermen pirates who had come to their doorstep and were collecting head fees would suddenly leave, but when she heard from the fisherman pirate who hurried over to report the news, that 3 children, a boy and 2 girls, had killed a fisherman cadre, she realized that something was wrong. So Belmere no longer hesitated, and directly followed the group of pirates with a gun to the village entrance. When she saw the appearance of the 3 children mentioned by the fisherman who came to report the news, she was shocked at first. Then she almost made a plan to sacrifice herself without thinking and let Ningchuan and the other 2 escape quickly. Because Belmere knew, the leader of this group of fishermen pirates, named Arlong, was terrifyingly powerful. Just standing in front of him, she felt a sense of powerlessness from the bottom of her heart. Even so, she bravely stood up after knowing that Arlong and his group's target was Ningchuan and the other 3, she wanted to buy them the last bit of time to escape. Shut up. Chuck, kill that woman who followed you all the way. Arlong didn't even want to look at Belmere who suddenly appeared. He directly sent another cadre under his command to kill her, and Arlong immediately set his sights on Ningchuan. Ningchuan smiled and looked at Arlong and his group in the distance, laughing expressionlessly. TSK, is this Arlong, the leader of the fishermen pirates who offered a bounty of 20 million Baileys? You are too weak, no wonder you can't survive in the Grand Line. The fishmen who were once members of the Sun Pirates, now only bully ordinary people. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why did Fisher Tiger, the leader of the Sun Pirates, bring out these unprogressive people like you? Hearing the endless mockery from Ningchuan in the distance, all the fishmen of the Arlong pirates had all frowned at this moment. They stared at Ningchuan with extremely cold eyes. Even the fishman cadre Jew who walked towards Belmere, they all turned around at this moment and looked at Ningchuan with a hint of murderous intent in their eyes. A mere human is worthy of mentioning Brother Tiger's name? If it weren't for the betrayal of you humans, how could Brother Tiger die? Hard humans, kill them all and eat them all. Boss Arlong, give the order to massacre the village. Before the massacre, I must kill this kid in front of me. Looking at the fishmen standing there excitedly, Ningchuan showed a sneer on his face, and added fuel to the fire by stretching out his finger and hooking it at them. Facing Ningchuan's continuous ridicule, Aaron's face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. He waved his hand and immediately stopped all the noise made by his men. He raised his head, his eyes full of blood red. Damn kid, you humans are worthy of mentioning Brother Tiger. Next, I will tear you into pieces myself, so that you can feel the price of daring to anger the fishmen before you die. Aaron's voice fell. He opened his mouth and showed his sharp fangs that could bite through steel plates. As a shark fishman, this mouthful of terrifying steel teeth is his strongest offensive weapon. Relying on this mouthful of terrifying steel teeth, even on the Grand Line, he didn't know how many enemies' bodies he had bitten off. And this time, the opponent he faced was just a human cub. If this kid hadn't completely angered him, he wouldn't have used his best skills to kill this kid. Huh? Are you in a hurry now? Looking at Along, who was already full of killing intent. Ning Chuan continued to provoke him as if nothing had happened. At this time, Ning Chuan had attracted all the hatred of the entire Along pirates to himself. Only in this way could Ning Chuan ensure that when he was fighting, Nami and the others would not be attacked by this group of hateful fishmen. You are here, looking for death. The moment Along's voice fell, he flew out from the spot in an instant. Along's speed was very fast. Even though he was not in the sea where he was good at, his speed still exceeded the limit of most ordinary humans. However, Ning Chuan was not an ordinary human. He was a cheater. The cultivation level of sprinting 100,000 steps returned before the calculation increased his reaction speed to an extremely terrifying level. Along's speed was so fast that most fishmen could not see his figure clearly. At this time, in Ning Chuan's eyes, he was just a little faster than ordinary people. Is this the extent of a pirate with a bounty of 20 million? This is really not good enough. Hearing Ning Chuan's mocking words, the furious Along was a few points faster than before. Almost in the blink of an eye, he had rushed in front of Ning Chuan. He opened his big mouth full of steel teeth and bit Ning Chuan's head fiercely. At this critical moment, Ning Chuan, who had been standing there, suddenly moved. He raised his right fist and smiled coldly at Along, who was flying over his head. In Along's horrified eyes, he blasted out fiercely. Ning Chuan's punch was aimed at Along's proud steel teeth. Crack! A series of crisp sounds instantly spread to the ears of everyone present. The next moment, I saw that Along's mouth full of terrifying steel teeth was shattered by Ning Chuan's punch. It was fiercely inserted in front of the fishermen pirates. However, this is not over yet. After smashing Along's mouth full of shark fangs, Ning Chuan's fist was like a no man's land. It went straight into Along's mouth. Then it came out from the back of his head. Pieces of brain tissue mixed with blood were scattered all over the place. Alas, so weak, Ning Chuan said disdainfully, and then retracted his fist. Looking at the blood on his fist, he frowned. After directly pulling Along's clothes to wipe it on it, he gently pushed Along's body. I saw that Along, who had already opened his mind and couldn't die any more, fell straight back. A simple punch, victory or defeat, life or death. At this moment, everyone on the field was stunned. Especially the Arlong pirates, the fishman pirates. They stared at their eyes in disbelief, looking at everything in front of them with horror. They didn't understand how their boss died. This is Boss Arlong. Arlong, one of the cadres of the once famous Sun Pirates. How could he die in the East China Sea, which is known as the weakest of the four seas, just after arriving in the East China Sea without even standing firmly? Or was he killed by a child who didn't even grow all his hair? How could this be possible? Even if you tell it to others, I'm afraid no one will believe it. Except for these fishman pirates. Belmere, who had been holding a gun and ready to die heroically at any time, was also dumbfounded at this time. What's wrong with this kid? A fishman pirate with such terrifying strength was actually killed by him with one punch. I shouldn't be dazzled, right? Belmere stretched out his hand and rubbed his eyes for a long time. Opening his eyes again, he looked at Along, who was lying motionless on the ground with a big hole on his head and had already lost his life. He was stunned in the spot. This kid's strength is probably more terrifying than those perverts specially recruited by the Navy. That while Belmere was stunned, Nami and Okiko patted their chests in fear. Although the death of the fishman brought them a great shock, but as long as Ningchuan was safe, they would be relieved. At this time, they were no longer frightened when they saw the dead for the first time. They had begun to adapt slowly. Ningchuan was naturally very satisfied with their performance at this time. Death happened from time to time in this sea. If they want to survive well, they must adapt to death in advance. When the whole audience was silent and no one made a sound, Ningchuan walked forward slowly a few steps, looking at the group of fishermen pirates under Along and spoke. Aaron is dead, so it's your turn next. I'll give you a chance. Commit suicide. If I wait for you to make a move, you may not even have a complete corpse. Ning Chuan stood alone in front of a group of fishmen pirates who were much taller than him and spoke mercilessly, and these fishmen pirates who invaded the village, at this time, when looking at this human cub who was many times shorter and thinner than them, there was only fear and uneasiness in their eyes. Some timid guys were so scared that they couldn't even hold their weapons steadily. "Brothers, don't be afraid. He is only one person, and we have 70 or 80 brothers. Can he kill us all by himself? Come on, everyone, cheer up, pick up your weapons, kill this kid, and massacre the village. Revenge for our boss Aaron." At this time, Aaron's men Kruby and Jiu, as well as other small leaders, stood up at this time, start cheering for the fishmen pirates. Because they know that the boy in front of them will definitely not let them go. Not even giving them a chance to surrender. And now, the only way to survive is to pick up weapons and fight with all their strength. Under the leadership of these small leaders, the remaining fishmen of the Arlong pirates took up their weapons one after another. They began to charge at Ningchuan desperately. However, what they didn't know was, what they were going to face next was Ningchuan, who had successfully settled his cultivation again. 5 minutes later, there were countless fishmen corpses lying in front of Ningchuan, but Ningchuan didn't even have any injuries on his body. He looked at the Arlong pirates that had been wiped out, he looked at Nami, Nokigo, and Belmir who was holding a gun and was a little overwhelmed, and those villagers who had been hiding in the dark watching the whole battle. He waved to everyone and smiled and said, "The Arlong pirates have been wiped out. Now, let's have a party." Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The banquet lasted for a whole day. As the biggest contributor to the resistance against the pirate invasion, Ningchuan naturally became the hero of the entire Cocoa West village, although he had just arrived in the village for less than a day, but he helped the village resist the terrible fishmen pirates and prevented the village from suffering huge losses. This contribution alone has made Ningchuan's name spread throughout the entire Cocoa West village. After the banquet, according to Ningchuan's instructions, the villagers hung up all the fishmen pirates in the same way as pickled salted fish, so that they can be preserved for a longer time until the navy comes to receive them. You must know that Aaron alone has a bounty of 20 million Baileys, his men also have a bounty of several million, these add up to a total of 30 million Baileys. It is a considerable fortune. Ningchuan will naturally not let go of this fortune, waited for several days in a row. The navy had made so many calls just to confirm the annihilation of the Arlong pirates that I don't know how many times they had called, until the morning of the 5th day. A navy warship with a bow shaped like a mouse's head finally slowly entered the port of Kokoyasi village, after learning the news of the arrival of the navy warship. All the villagers of Kokoyasi village came to the port to watch the navy. Warship was very large, several times larger than the pirate ship of the Arlong pirates docked at the port. This warship was also equipped with a large number of the most advanced artillery. It was much higher than the configuration of the Arlong pirates. Colonel Mao standing on the bow. When the warship was about to dock at the port, he was shocked to see Arlong's pirate ship and got into the cabin at lightning speed, but when the lookout carefully observed for a long time and found that there was no trace of any fishman activity on the ship, he dared to get out of the cabin. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and spoke. "This Aaron is such a loser. When he looted the previous villages, I thought he was a big shot. But I didn't expect that he would fail in the weakest village of Kokoyashi. Humph, I'll have to clean up your mess." As the warship stopped steadily, the landing deck was successfully brought to the shore. Colonel Mouse dared to straighten his back and walk down the warship with more than 10 confidants behind him. Seeing the military rank on Colonel Mouse's shoulder, Belmir, who was standing aside, couldn't help but get excited. She pulled Ningchuan's arm and whispered in his ear. "Ningchuan, this is a naval colonel, a big official, don't offend him. Otherwise, you will be unlucky if you join the navy in the future." Hearing Belmir's words, Ningchuan couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Aunt Belmir, I never said I wanted to join the navy." As soon as Ningchuan said this, Belmir stretched out a hand to give Ningchuan a slap. However, Ningchuan reacted very quickly and easily avoided Belmir's sneak attack. "Listen to what you are saying. You are so talented. If you don't join the navy to fight pirates, do you want to be a pirate?" Listening to Belmir's scolding, Ningchuan was speechless. "But I didn't say I wanted to be a pirate." While the two were bickering, Colonel Mouse had already walked to the side of the Arlong pirates that had been dried into salted fish. Colonel Mouse circled Arlong's body that had been dried into a dried fish. When he saw the transparent big hole on Arlong's head, Colonel Mouse was shocked. He knew Arlong's strength very well. Even the cannons on the ship couldn't blow open his extremely strong body, plus his terrifying reaction speed. Even if he landed on the shore, his combat power would be reduced if he was not in the sea he was most familiar with. He should not have been punched in the head in the East China Sea, the weakest of the four seas, although Colonel Mouse did not want to believe that Arlong, one of the former cadres of the Sun Pirates, would die in this Cocoa West village, but the bodies of Arlong and his crew were right in front of him. They were also made into dried salted fish. Such facts forced Colonel Mouse to believe everything in front of him. Who did it? It definitely wasn't these villagers in front of us. Colonel Mouse couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that a strong man who passed by didn't like Arlong and his group and killed them? If that's the case, then the bounty of Arlong and his group, and his valuable pirate ship. Wouldn't it all be mine? Thinking of this, a trace of greed appeared on Colonel Mouse's face. Your village has done a good job. You have wiped out the pirates, a great achievement. I will take these hateful pirate corpses back and apply for the bounty for you. I will send it to you as soon as the bounty arrives. Colonel Mouse patted the village chief's shoulder and said seriously. The thin village chief was trembling all over by Colonel Mouse's powerful hand, although he knew that as long as Colonel Mouse took the corpse away, this greedy guy would take the bounty that Ningchuan deserved, but he did not dare to have any dissatisfaction. The village chief knew very well that if Colonel Mouse was angered, then his methods would be even darker than those pirates. Come on, move all these hateful pirate corpses to the ship. We are ready to return. By the way, take the pirate ship of Arlong and his gang with you. Looking at the trembling headman of Kokoyasi village standing in front of him, the greed in Colonel Mouse's eyes was even more intense than before. Wait. The Navy's procedure is not like this. The Navy who comes to pick up the bounty prisoners must bring enough bounty money. Colonel Mouse, you are not doing this in accordance with the rules. Just when Colonel Mouse was about to order his men to move the bodies of Aaron and his gang, Belmer suddenly stood up at this time and loudly rebuked. Where did the woman come from? What rules are you talking about? Why haven't I heard of it? Belmer's words made Colonel Mouse very angry. In this weak Kokoyasi village, there are still people who dare to refute themselves. I am really tired of living. Report to Colonel Mouse, I am a retired Navy and familiar with the Navy's work process. If you insist on being so unruly, I will complain to my former superiors about you. Hearing Belmer's words, Colonel Mouse was surprised at first, then there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. He reached into his pocket and took out a bag of gold coins worth 1,000,000 Baileys. He threw it directly into Belmer's hand. Take your money and shut your mouth. You, keep moving. Colonel Mouse glared at Belmer fiercely. He continued to command his men to move the bodies of Arlong and other pirates. Seeing this scene, Belmer was a little dumbfounded. Just when she was about to go forward and argue with Colonel Mouse, the group of impatient confidants beside Colonel Mouse directly raised their guns and pointed them at Belmer and a group of villagers. Whatever the colonel says, you do it. If you don't want to live, then I'll send you all off. The people in the village looked at the Navy who was supposed to protect everyone's safety, and suddenly pointed their guns at themselves. Everyone present was so scared that they froze in place, not daring to say a word. Just then, Ning Chuan patted Belmer's shoulder and spoke directly as if no one was around. Belmer, now you know why I don't want to join the Navy, right? After saying this, Ning Chuan fixed his eyes on Colonel Mouse standing behind a group of Navy men, and said coldly to him. You are Colonel Mouse, you want to steal everything. But if you dare to steal me, have you thought about how you will die? Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing these words, Colonel Mouse and his cronies all showed a trace of anger on their faces. Who is saying these words? Get out of here! Colonel Mouse looked in the direction of the voice and shouted angrily. Just when Colonel Mouse searched around for several times and couldn't find who was talking, his cronies suddenly patted him on the shoulder, pointing at Ningchuan not far in front of him. Boss, this kid said it, I just saw it. He looked in the direction of his men's gaze. I saw a teenager who looked only in his teens, standing in front of him and others with a sneer on his face. Puff. Ha ha ha, I stole your money. Who do you think you are? Do you think you killed along? You still say I stole your money, you are not afraid of laughing to death. After Colonel Mouse said this, he and his cronies all laughed out loud, however, among the hundreds of villagers standing there at this time, but no one laughed out loud to please them. After all, after seeing Ningchuan easily slaughtering the Along pirates with their own eyes, they all knew Ningchuan's terrifying strength. What's more, Ningchuan did not lie. He was the one who killed Along. Feeling that the atmosphere around him was a little wrong, Colonel Mouse looked at Ningchuan suspiciously. There is nothing different about this kid. This thin arm and thin leg, it's obvious that he is not the guy who killed Along. Thinking of this, Colonel Mouse felt relieved. Don't talk to these annoying guys. Hurry up and move everyone on board, we still have to go back and report. If anyone dares to stop us again, just shoot. After Colonel Mouse said this, he walked straight towards the direction of Along's pirate ship in the distance. He wanted to go on board and search it thoroughly. Maybe there are treasures left by Aaron on this ship. However, before Colonel Mouse walked out 10 meters away, he heard screams coming from behind him. Then, a strong smell of blood drifted into Colonel Mouse's nose. Smelling this bloody smell, Colonel Mouse felt bad. He turned around and saw Ning Chuan, whose hands were covered in blood, standing in front of him with a sneer on his face, and behind him, all the confidence he had cultivated over the years fell in a pool of blood. Now you know who killed Aaron, right? But you may know it a little late. Listening to Ning Chuan's cold words, Colonel Mouse felt as if he was stared at by a terrifying ancient beast. He was so scared that he stood there in a daze, not daring to make any extra movements. I didn't recognize the real man. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. The bounty, a total of 30 million bounties, I'll give you half. No, I'll give it all to you. Even the pirate ship of Along and his crew. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Spare me a life. Feeling the terrifying murderous intent coming from Ning Chuan, at this moment, Colonel Mouse was almost scared to death by this terrifying murderous intent. However, it was too late for him to say this now. With his character, Ning Chuan naturally wouldn't believe the nonsense he said. If he let him go this time, I'm afraid that the next time he came to Cocoa West Island, it would be a few warships that came to slaughter the village in the name of clearing out pirates. There should be many Black Navy officers like you. When I sail on the sea in the future, I can only kill them one by one. After saying this, Ning Chuan no longer hesitated. He stretched out a finger and stabbed directly into the aorta in his neck. Ning Chuan's finger was very fast, and he stabbed the mouse colonel through almost instantly. Almost in an instant, a large amount of blood began to spurt out from his neck. In less than a minute, this Black Navy mouse colonel, who was famous in the nearby waters, no longer had any breath. He couldn't die any more. After killing the mouse colonel, Ning Chuan came to him. He reached into his clothes. Soon, he took out several purses filled with valuable gold coins. The total value of the gold coins in these purses should be around 30 million baileys. It corresponds to the bounty of all the people in the Arlong pirates. This cunning guy actually brought all the bounties down. It seems that his fight it should be that when you encounter a strong guy who can't be defeated, you should buy your life with money. But if you don't meet such a guy, this large sum of money will be stolen by him. But unfortunately, I met him this time. Ningchuan sneered and put all these valuable mora into his pocket. Killing a Navy colonel is a serious crime. I can't stay in Cocoa West Village next, I can only start sailing around the world. But before leaving, I must trick Nami and Nokigo away. Nami's sailing skills and Nokigo's cooking skills are both very good. Just when Ningchuan was thinking about his next plan, Belmare suddenly rushed in front of Ningchuan and put her finger under the nose of Colonel Mouse. When she learned that Colonel Mouse was dead, she couldn't help but sigh. Alas, Ningchuan, although this guy is not a good navy, it will be troublesome to kill him. You will be wanted by the navy next. I'm afraid the navy will come to this island in a few days. Leave quickly before those guys on the ship find you, the farther the better. Looking at Belmare's anxious look, Ningchuan smiled at her, put his hand on her shoulder and said seriously. Belmare, before leaving, I have a very excessive request, I hope you can agree. Hearing Ningchuan's words, Belmere was stunned for a moment, although she didn't know what Ningchuan meant by very excessive, she nodded subconsciously. I want to take Nami and Nokigo to sail on the sea together. It shouldn't be long, we will come back to see you. Hearing Ningchuan's excessive words, Belmere was about to refuse, but two familiar voices suddenly came from behind her. Mom, I want to go sailing with Ningchuan. I want to draw the best sea chart in the world. Nami plucked up her courage and stood beside Ningchuan and said. Mom, I also want to go sailing with Ningchuan. If only the two of them go out to sea, I really can't rest assured. Don't worry, with me here, they won't be hungry. Nokigo also stood behind Ningchuan in time and plucked up the courage to speak. You guys. Belmere, who would never agree anyway, after hearing Nami and Nokigo call her mom, for so many years, except when they were young, they have never called themselves mom so affectionately. It was this mom that softened Belmere's heart. She wiped the tears from her eyes, pulled Ningchuan's collar and yelled at him viciously. If my two daughters are wronged by you, even if I chase you to the ends of the earth, I will never let you go. After yelling, she changed her face to a loving one and whispered to the three people. Before I regret it, you guys, hurry up and leave. The Navy has already disembarked. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After saying goodbye to Belmere, Ningchuan held Nami and Nokigo's waists in one hand each, and rushed towards the Arlong pirate ship docked at the port. He got on the ship, lowered the sails, and turned the rudder. Just like that, under Ningchuan's smooth operation, in front of all the Navy, the Arlong pirate ship turned a direction and headed for the depths of the sea. Why did the pirate ship move by itself? On the warship docked near the pirate ship, the lookout immediately discovered something wrong. He just conveyed the news to the deputy captain who stayed on the ship. He saw the second batch of Navy who disembarked were waving flags to themselves frantically. Colonel Mouse and his cronies were all killed. The kid who killed Colonel Mouse also took two villagers hostage, jumped onto the pirate ship and escaped. The lookout was extremely surprised as he translated the flag signal from the flag bearer in the distance. The lieutenant colonel on the ship was stunned in an instant after hearing the words translated by the lookout. A moment later, he immediately ordered his men to blow the whistle to board the ship. He was going to start chasing the guy who had the guts to kill Colonel Mouse and his cronies. At the same time, the lieutenant colonel took out a special den mushy with a dog head from the captain's room. He hesitated again and again, but still called it. Report to Vice Admiral Garp. In the village of Cocoa West in the East China Sea, the Navy Colonel Mouse was killed here. On the other end of the phone, the Navy hero Garp, who was sailing on the sea and was about to return to Windmill Village to visit his grandson. After hearing the news, he was furious. Someone dared to kill a Navy colonel in the East China Sea. Such a bold act is simply unforgivable. The East China Sea is the most peaceful place among the four seas. Anyone who dares to destroy the peace of the East China Sea must not be let go. Hang up the phone, Garp shouted at the helmsman. Turn around and go to Cocoa West Village. I want to see which guy dares to be so bold. At the same time, Ningchuan, who was already sailing on the sea, he frowned slightly at the warship of Colonel Mouse chasing behind him. Although no one of the frequent artillery bombardments hit their ships, but the noisy sound made Ningchuan very dissatisfied. How about sinking this annoying warship as well? Ningchuan thought about it and gave up the idea. After all, his current naval strength has not been restored by cultivation, although the speed of cultivation restoration is very fast. But if one is hit by a shell that falls into the sea by accident, that would be a loss. Nami and Nokigo, who were standing by, also shook their heads after Ningchuan said he wanted to sink the warship. It's not that they don't believe in Ningchuan's strength, but they are worried about Ningchuan's safety. Ningchuan, don't go. As long as we pull the sails full, our ship speed will be improved again. In this way, we will soon be able to get rid of this group of hateful Navy. Nami stood in front of Ningchuan and said seriously, usually, pirate ships are small, but they have an absolute advantage in speed. Navy ships generally can't catch up with pirate ships. Looking at Nami's nervous expression standing in front of him, Ningchuan smiled and rubbed her head, giving up the idea of going into the sea to sink the warship. If possible, he still didn't want Nami and Nokigo to worry about him. Looking at the pirate ship that was gradually riding the wind and starting to speed up, Ning Chuan couldn't help showing a trace of dissatisfaction on his face. The wind-driven ship is really too backward. If we can get the engine technology on Blue Star, wouldn't it be a dimensionality reduction attack in this world? Thinking of this, Ning Chuan's eyes suddenly lit up. I don't know if my cultivation that has been returned 10,000 times can be used in other places. For example, in terms of learning. If it is possible, wouldn't I be able to restore some cutting-edge technologies on Blue Star? Maybe even aircraft carriers can be built by then. Suddenly, Ning Chuan began to have some thoughts about going to the most advanced shipyard in the pirate world, Water City, to take a look. As the pirate ship the three people were riding began to gradually accelerate. Gradually, the Navy warships following behind them were left behind and disappeared. Ha! The Navy's warships are so heavy, it's so easy to get rid of them. Nami stood on the bow with her hands folded in front of her chest and said proudly. Ningchuan, take next, where are we going? Nokigo took out the sea chart in the captain's room and studied it carefully. Hearing Nokigo's words, Ningchuan thought about it and said a place that Nami and Nokigo had never heard of. Let's go to the sea restaurant Barati. I'm not very good at fighting. Maybe I can learn some fighting skills by going to the sea restaurant. Based on the previous battles, I found that although my fighting ability is strong, I don't know any fighting skills. It's okay to deal with some weak enemies, but if you face a strong guy, I'm afraid you will suffer. After Ningchuan finished speaking, Nami and Nokigo were a little confused. Go to a restaurant to learn fighting skills? Shouldn't you go to learn how to cook? Ningchuan, did you have a fever and burn your brain? Nami walked in front of Ningchuan and reached out to touch his head. After confirming that Ningchuan did not have a fever, she breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Nami's cute look of worrying about herself, Ningchuan couldn't help but rub her head and explained. I forgot to tell you. You probably don't know that the chef of the sea restaurant Barati has a very fierce nickname, called Redfoot Zeph. This is a pirate who successfully retired after sailing on the Grand Line for a period of time. His kicking skills are quite good. The enemies who fought with him were easily kicked by him and blood was splashed 3 feet. He also got a nickname called Redfoot. After listening to Ningchuan's past about Redfoot Zeph, they couldn't help but be very interested in this chef called Redfoot Zeph. Nami picked up the sea chart in the hands of Master Nochi and took a look, pointing to a coordinate in the sea chart and speaking. The location of the sea restaurant is on this sea chart. Then let's go. At the same time, somewhere in the East China Sea, Garp was studying the sea chart in his hands seriously. This trip actually requires passing by the sea restaurant Barati. I'm hungry too, and the fleet also needs supplies, so let's stop at this sea restaurant first and eat before setting off. Bogart, Garp's adjutant, rolled his eyes after hearing Garp's words and couldn't help but remind him. Vice Admiral Garp, I think we should focus on catching fugitives. Hearing Bogart's words, Garp laughed and patted his shoulder. Bogart, this time it was just a child who killed Colonel Mouse. I believe he can't run far. And I have a hunch that it won't be long before we meet that kid. A kid who is only in his early teens can kill a colonel. I am very interested in this kid.